Fantastic. Welcome, everybody, to Art 116. We're going to be able to talk about something that I have to remember what it is. So I might as well hit the share screen and dive right into it because my memory has failed me for just a second. So sharing with you guys. Subjective color is the last thing I wanted to talk about this quarter. We are screen sharing. We're going to start the PowerPoint. Okay, I've got to hit it twice. Okay, subjective color. At the end of our chapter, our authors are talking about several different interesting things, and I could only pick one for us to really deal with and go into depth with, and I wanted it to be subjective color. It's kind of an interesting approach to color because it allows you as artists to choose the colors that you want to work with. But it really is handy to see how colors harmonize even when you're using subjective color. So the idea of subjective color is that it comes from your imagination. It does not come from a direct observation of nature necessarily. And so we're going to look at this through some art historical examples from art history of people who originated the idea of subjective color. We're going to do a painting where you can use the correct end of the brush end of the brush, and we're not going to do dots anymore. You'll be able to choose whatever colors you want to work with. You'll be able to paint it wet in wet, and all the fun bells and whistles that go along with painting, we finally get to do in this subjective color painting. Now, this painting is going to be just like the other one in that I'm going to provide some templates that are photoshopped outlines of famous paintings from art history that you'll be able to choose from. And then that'll give you some kind of a guideline, to do your own painting. But you're going to do your interpretation of that painting. I want you to create and choose different subjective colors than those used originally by the artist. And so this will be, again, your interpretation. It's going to be slightly different than the original. And so there's all of that. So it should be fun. Okay, subjective color. So not color from direct observation. This color comes from your imagination. They are often, when we see them in paintings, they're unnatural, jarring color harmonies. And so we're going to have to talk about that because there are some times when colors conflict and are difficult to look at, and it works in a composition. But you're going to find oftentimes that we're seeing neutralized colors that also harmonize nicely, even if they aren't natural colors. So I will get into that in just a bit. The modern painting movements that used or kind of tried to originate and really work off of subjective color were the Fauves, a very short-lived movement in 1905. Expressionism, often called German Expressionism, at the end of the First World War, 1917 or so. Cubism did it a lot throughout the first third of the 20th century, but pop art is where we're going to go to kind of wind up things. We're going to start with the Fauves, and we're going to wind up with pop art, looking at subjective color. Okay, and so here we go. Okay, shoot, it went too far, and I don't know how to page it back. This is going to kill me. This is really going to kill me. Page up. There we go. Okay. So Henri Matisse. When we look at the beginning of the 20th century and painters that were in Europe that were kind of spearheading the avant-garde, the bloody edge of the new movement of modernism, Picasso was leading the movement for abstraction using shapes and forms that were abstract in painting. And Matisse was interested in using color abstractly in painting. So what does that mean? Well, Matisse and some others were really interested in playing with color and creating this idea of subjective color. And in 1905, they got together and had an exhibit at a small gallery in Paris. A critic who wrote a review of the show said that that all the paintings were hung around the walls on the outside of the gallery, and then in the middle of the gallery was this antique statue by Donatello, one of the early Renaissance sculptors. So it was this 400-year-old bronze sculpture in the middle of all of these brand new paintings. And the reviewer said that, you know, Donatello was surrounded by wild beasts. Donatello was surrounded by the fauves, fauve being the word in French that would refer to wild beasts. And so the name stuck. These guys became known as the fauves because they were so wild in their use of color. And here's the good example used by all the textbooks to talk about this. This is Matisse painting a portrait of his wife. This is called Madame Matisse, but it has a nickname called the green line because of the line that runs down through the middle of her nose. And so let's look at this a little bit, and I'm going to try not to get crazy with my finger because that advances the slide, which is death to me. But I'm going to try to move this carefully over to the color shapes in the background to talk about them. I'm sitting to the left of her ear right now in a place that feels like it's red-orange, okay? A red-orange color shape. Above that in the upper left-hand corner is a red-violet color shape, mixed with a little bit of white. And that becomes important later on, mixing colors with white to make them a little bit more pastel or to make them a little bit more neutralized. The important part of that is neutralizing the color. Over to the right side in the background, we're looking at a blue-green area of background, big blue-green area. Again, not only mixed blue and green, but also with white to tint it up a little bit, to soften it, so that it also harmonizes better with the other colors. But let's really look at what's going on with the figure in this composition. Let's start with the outside contour line that's in dark blue. He was using dark blue to kind of draw a contour line around everything. And so the hair becomes this hair helmet done in blue. You know, he's not using naturalistic colors of, you know, browns or blacks or highlights or anything like that. He's using blue, a really strong Prussian or cobalt blue in the hair. And that same blue is used in the eyebrows and also in the eyelids or the eyelashes, and the colored portion of the eye, the pupil and the iris are just this big spot of blue in the middle of each eye. So it's not natural, it's kind of stylized, it's weird, and really it's the color choice that is so weird. Let's look at the two sides of her face. Over on the right side, we've got kind of a peach color, but basically it's that same reddish orange that's in the background, only it's got a whole bunch of white kind of dry brushed over the top of it. So, you know, we've got the reddish orange on the one side on the right, and then on the left side is this really strange yellow green that I think is related to the green in the background on the other side, but it's got a lot more yellow mixed into it with some white, so that he's using colors to harmonize at the same time as he is using really crazy colors to, you know, go nuts with this composition. And where he mixed colors in the middle and also mixed them over the top blue, that's where we get this kind of green line kind of coming down her forehead and the bridge of her nose. We also have that same kind of, I gotta be careful here, kind of orange, red, red-orange in her garment that she's wearing. It's just got a little bit more white mixed in with it. In fact, there's some of that, and there's some of the red-violet too. So both of the colors that are from up on the side of her head over here have been mixed together in her blouse down below, which is really cool. Plus, the green in this collar right here is the same green that's over here in the background. So there's really only about 5 colors in this composition, and he's using them both to be, you know, creative with, but also to help unify the composition and harmonize the composition better by sticking with those colors. So it is kind of important to have a rather limited palette, to only have 4 or 5 colors that you're really basing your whole painting with. And with subjective color, you can do that. Okay, now let's see what happens when I go forward. Okay, another one, Matisse, the woman with the hat. So I'm going to try to move you guys over a little bit so that you're off the thing here. But you can see the craziness of the colors. We've got different color shapes floating in the background. We've got lemon yellow, we've got blue, green, a red violet, blue green up in the upper left-hand corner, all kinds of crazy colors. And then all those colors have been brought into her actual face. So we've got highlights that are a bright yellow color with no other color mixed in with it, just bright yellow on the tip of her nose, on the cheekbone, and on her upper lip. And then you can see all kinds of other strong colors. She's got a red upper lip and a blue lower lip. Oh, it's so awesome. She's got a yellow area above one eye and a kind of a blue-green area above the other eye. It's just fantastic. The colors are really kind of crazy mishmash of colors, but he's only using, again, 5 or 6 colors in the composition. They're all over the composition, so that when you use them all over the place, it helps to unify the composition and pull it together with harmony, which is nice. One of his big famous things that he was into was this joy of life, joie de vivre in French. And it was a painting motif that he returned to oftentimes with his paintings. This is a lot of the different images all put into one here. He's got this circle of dancers. They're all nude, but they're kind of joining hands and doing Ring Around the Rosie. They're doing a dance in the middle here, kind of cavorting and enjoying life. We've got nudes kind of sunbathing and posing as models and stuff in the middle ground here. We've got other nude figures doing all kinds of other things, both erotic and not erotic. There's also people actually playing flutes or recorders or something. But this is supposed to be a scene that's out on a beach by the ocean. And so we are in the trees, we're back here in the trees, and we're looking through an opening in the trees out towards the beach with the ocean in the background. So the beach sand is that bright yellow color. That's all the sand on the beach. When you go all the way out to the horizon and look at the quality of the water, we've got violet water, we've got a red violet water, but we don't have any blue water out there. The sky beyond the sea, beyond the horizon, is a pink sky. But what's really cool is all of these trees that we're in the trees and we're supposed to be in the shade back here, but these trees are all like on fire. We've got these orange and red shadows in the trees with green tree trunks kind of going up in between them all. So he's just reassigning colors to different kind of color shapes that really are super playful and fun and all that kind of stuff. And so this is the idea of subjective color in a composition. Andre Derain was another one of the artists that was in this foul exhibit in 1905. And this is a super famous painting that's in all the art history books called The Turning Road. This is a city park. And so we're kind of sitting in one end of the city park, looking across a grassy field. There's a road that is in the foreground and going to the right, and then it kind of turns around, and then we see the road in the background a little bit with people on horseback are back there on the road. And then across the road, there's a line of trees in the further background behind that. But all of these trees and grass and everything are just amazing because of the colors that are being used instead of normal colors. The grassy field has lots of reds and yellows in that middle ground area where there are people reclining in the shade and walking across the grass and stuff like that. That line of trees that's way in the background is all blue canopies kind of put together, blues and violet canopies with a kind of snake of yellow sunshine kind of coming down on the top of the canopies in the background trees. But it's these trees in the foreground that are just crazy to look at. We've got tree trunks that start out maybe blue violet on the bottom, and then they just changed to red halfway up the tree trunk on that middle tree. There's a pine tree that's just left of center there that has kind of a orange and red tree trunk going up the middle of it, and then the pine tree itself is almost on fire because it's all oranges and yellows and reds with just a little bit of green foliage around the outside edge of the pine tree to kind of quiet things down enough so that, oh yeah, it's a pine tree. I can see that it's a pine tree. This is that idea of subjective color that the Fauves introduced in 1905. This looks so wild and crazy to us. And it was truly earth-shattering at the time. I'm going to keep moving here and see what happens. Another André Derain thing. This is just kind of a seascape with a village on the edge of the ocean and kind of fields in front of that in the foreground. Okay, now we're going to skip to the 1960s and to pop art. And an icon of the pop art movement was Andy Warhol. And Warhol, I mean, books have been written about Warhol, and I could go on for hours about Warhol, but he was super interested in what was happening in America, especially in popular culture in America in the middle of the 20th century. He looked around and saw that we were mass producing things in factories. He was interested in American mass produced culture. And he was interested in celebrities and celebrity culture, and could kind of see a mixture and an overlap between, you know, the celebrity culture and the idea of movies and television and all of that kind of stuff. So he played with all of those ideas. You may be familiar with an Andy Warhol idea called the Campbell's soup can, where he did a painting of nothing but a Campbell's soup can, and it looked exactly like a Campbell's soup can. And so he was celebrating the idea of mass production and duplication and all of that. And it was kind of controversial because Campbell Soup got mad at him for infringing on copyright, but he said, no, this is not a Campbell Soup can. This is a painting of a Campbell Soup can. I can do this. And, you know, he can. And it was part of his free speech, and he got away with it. So he was really interested in celebrities. And here we've got Marilyn Monroe in a painting, or shall I say a silk screen from 1962. This is based on her publicity photos that got handed out from Hollywood in the 1950s when she was a star in a lot of pictures in the 1950s. And, you know, she was known as this blonde, bombshell, sex, whatever icon of the silver screen. And so how does Warhol approach this? Well, with the idea of subjective color, we're using pink here for her skin tones, but it's not just a pink that's anywhere near a Caucasian pink. It's kind of this strange darker pink color. Instead of the bleach blonde hair, we have this lemon yellow, once again applied to the hair. And in a way of kind of mapping out big color shapes for silk screening, he took the black and white photograph and assigned different shapes to different colors so that the hair was done in yellow. All of the shadows and all of the details of the photograph are done in black. So we've got all of the hair texture, the eyes, the eyebrows, the lip texture, and the shadows under the nose, plus the shadows under the chin, all done in black ink. So that is silk screened on last, but you know, that's silk screened on after the yellow went on for the hair, the pink for the face, the light blue for the eyelids, the red for the lips, and that horrible institutional blue background. We used to call that post office green or post office blue because it is this tint, this pastel of blue green that was supposed to calm you down when you went into a place like this, and it was used in prisons and post offices and other government buildings to try to pacify and make people not anxious and calm them down and everything so they behave themselves in all these public places. And so Warhol is using that, as the background in this painting. So these colors don't depart too far from reality, but they do depart from reality just enough that they are subjective colors. Okay, and so Warhol would do series of things, and he would try all kinds of different color combinations and everything else. So here's another version of it, again with the yellow hair, this time with an orange background, this time with a light violet for the skin tones. Interesting to use a blue, kind of a medium blue for actually what's supposed to be the whites of the eyes, and then a lighter blue, a higher key blue for the eyelids, again red for the lips. It looks like Marilyn Monroe, but it is starting to depart enough in the use of colors that it's starting to look not exactly like her anymore. And it's starting to become a little bit like a monster. I should say in the 1960s and 70s that the horror movies from the 1930s were being rediscovered and rebroadcast on television as reruns and stuff. So Frankenstein and Dracula and the Werewolf and the Mummy, all of these black and white films from the 1930s were being shown on television and really popularized and coming into a second life of their own. And sometimes I think that these stranger approaches to Marilyn Monroe start to look a little bit like the Wolfman and have this kind of feeling of monstrosity when we push the idea of beauty to extremes like he does with these color combinations. So let's keep going here, if it will let me go to the next one. So, just like the idea of mass production, if one Marilyn is good, 4 Marilyns are better. And so we've got 4 different versions of Marilyn. Some are a little bit closer to a naturalistic representational color structure, and some are a huge departure from that color structure, all using the same color separations for the silk screens, but just different colors screened into those different color shapes. Which is really interesting. The one on the upper right feels like it's a color positive. The one on the lower left feels fairly much like a positive, not too far away from a photograph. But the ones on the upper left and lower right kind of almost feel like color negatives. If you guys remember black and white and color photography done in a dark room, those kind of have a negative feel because we're flipping lots of different values and colors in the image there. So it's very fascinating how he's playing with color and getting different results from the same image. And if 4 Marilyns is good, 9 Marilyns is even better. So it just keeps going like that. I wanted to show you this image just to show you all the different possibilities that you could possibly do with one of these paintings, because you're going to get, on a piece of cardstock, the line drawing for this image. You'll have choices. You can do the Marilyn Monroe, you can do the Madame Matisse if you want to. You can do Andre Derain's The Turning Road. You've got lots of choices. There will be about 5 or 6 different paintings that you can choose from to make your own. And then you have to come up with the colors and try to make it work as a painting. May I suggest using lots of white in at least half of your colors to tint them up so that they neutralize a little bit and harmonize a little bit better. And only use a full strength, full intensity color in 1 or 2 places in your painting. Because if you do that, you can use it for emphasis, and you can really place emphasis on that spot with a full spectrum intensity color. And all of your other colors are somewhat neutralized. They will help hold the composition together better. So that is my presentation on subjective color. It's going to give you something to think about. I want us to try to finish up the apples by Wednesday so that we can have them all turned in and uploaded so that I've got something to look at. But I should by Wednesday have a bunch of these printouts on cardstock available in the classroom so that we can share them. They will also be available online in this coursework, so that you guys would be able to either download them or print them out in coursework online and be able to use them that way. I strongly recommend, either coming into the studio to be able to get the line drawing so that you can paint on it, or getting yourself some cardstock that will go through a printer so that you can print this out at home and be able to print it out at home. I do have at least one person who's interested in doing this as a digital piece, possibly. And so there may be some people trying to do a digital manipulation of a piece of artwork. I've also had folks ask the question, can I use my own image? Can I go out and do something else, like a pop star, a rock star, somebody else who's contemporary, someone who's not a 50 or 70-year-old film star or a 100-year-old painting from art history? And the answer is yes, you can definitely do that. You are going to have to try to create the template for you to paint on yourself. So finding the image, trying to either download it and print it out on cardstock, or even possibly turn it into a line drawing so that it's, without any kind of values or colors in it, so that you can then put your own colors in it, is all going to be on you. But yes, you can do your found image in that way if you want to. So subjective color is going to be our final painting. We're going to be taking about a week or a week and a half to do it. I think you guys are going to have fun with it. And so I wanted to plant the seed for this thing now, let it germinate, let you guys think about it, and then we're going to kind of revisit this on Wednesday and really plunge into this on Friday, starting to paint the subjective color pieces. So that's the end of my presentation today. I wanted to open it up before I close it down. So the online people, if you have any questions or comments or reactions, please feel free to unmute your mic and pipe up and say something. And those of you in the classroom, do you guys have any questions or comments or anything about subjective color? Does that look like fun, or does that just look like one more damn thing to do? I should never have asked you the question because I know what the answer is. So sorry about that. Not seeing anything coming from the folks online. I'm going to call it a day. We're going to post this recording on the website so that you guys can look it over if you want to get more information from it. So I want to thank you guys for being here today, and look forward to critiquing the apples painting on Wednesday of this week. So please get it finished up, photographed, and uploaded by Wednesday. I'm going to say goodbye for now. So I'm going to hit the stop button and see you guys on Wednesday, especially the online people. Bye-bye.